We'll bring this meeting to order, please. If I could have everyone's attention. Please. We want to bring the meeting to order. Prior to the open session, Council met for a closed meeting. It was moved by Councillor McCann, seconded by Councillor Borneman. Pursuant to Section 239(2) and 3 of the Municipal Act, SO 2001 C25 is amended. Council of the Corporation of the Town of Parry Sound moved to a meeting closed to the public in order to address matters pertaining to A, the security of property of the municipality or local board, audit questions of council. D, labor relations or employee negotiations, Stocky Center and union negotiations. And E, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board. And it was a planning matter. That was carried. So may I have a mover and seconder for the agenda, please? Councillor McCann, Councillor Keith. Is there any prioritization or additions to the agenda? Nope. Okay. So that the council agenda for September 4th, 2018 be approved as circulated. All in favor? That's carried. Any disclosure of pecuniary interest or the general nature thereof? I have item 922, and it's due to my affiliation with the nonprofit. I'll go back to the clerk. And so, may I have a mover and... So, ladies and gentlemen, we're now going to take a few minutes to hold a public meeting to hear any interested persons with regard to proposed zoning bylaw amendment under Section 34 of the Planning Act. May I have a mover and seconder to adjourn the meeting? Councillor Marshall and Councillor Horn. We now adjourn the regular meeting and declare the public meeting open. All in favor? And that's carried. Ms. Boggs, could you explain how the public was notified of the application Z18/04 Louisa Street, Acorn Ridge?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Notice was given by prepaid first-class mail to the required prescribed agencies and property owners within 120 meters, posted on the property and was placed on the town website.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Elgie, can you explain the purpose of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment?
Absolutely. The applicant has requested to amend the special provision 44's holding zone and the R2 zone to permit up to 160 apartment dwelling units with a maximum height of 16.5 meters. The property is currently zoned to permit up to 74 retirement residence units. The property is a vacant lot on Louisa Street and is described as part of lots 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 on the west side of Louisa Street on Plan 21. I should also note too, notice is posted in the paper as well.
Okay, very good. So at this time, does anyone wish to speak in favor of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment? If so, please come forward, identify yourself, and give your name and address. Okay.
Good evening, Your Worship, council members, staff, and members of the public.
Well, the microphone.
My name is Greg Vale. I'm one of the owners of in Louisa Street. And great. And we've been asked to speak briefly. I understand it's very brief. We've been asked to kind of keep it to 5 minutes, so I'll try to get through it fairly quickly. Okay. Okay. Oh, board day. Okay. Well, I think we can get through it like you suggested. Sure. Yeah. Not me. Sean, can you run the? Thanks. Okay. I am a technologically challenged individual, so this is not for me. Okay, so as Taylor was suggesting, so our subject site's located on the west side of Louisa Street, north of Spruce Street. Our lands are approximately 3.48 hectares, or about 8.6 acres in size. And we have vacant lands located to the north of our site with existing residential properties to the east along Louisa Street and to the south. Again, as stated previously, under the previous ownership, the lands were approved in about the year 2000 for retirement development consisting of 74 units. And to accommodate the previously approved development, the lands were zoned R3 with an exception SP 2644. We are proposing a site that would contain 5 separate condominium apartment blocks consisting of a total of 160 residential units that will divide out at about 32 units for each block over 4 stories, 8 units of floor. It's pretty straightforward. Our unit mix will be roughly 26 2-bedrooms and 6 1-bedrooms across each apartment block. Our buildings are going to be accessed by an internal road system. We are proposing at this point an entrance, a single main entrance that has both an ingress and an egress, each of 6 meters with a center median. And we, as per the zoning requirements, we are providing a total of 200 surface parking spaces in a loading zone, split out about 160 spaces or 1 per unit for each unit, 30 visitor parking spaces, and 10 barrier-free spots. So our proposed development meets or exceeds all of the lot area and setback requirements under the R3 zone. However, to accommodate our 4-story buildings on the land, an exception zone is being requested to increase the allowable building height to 16.5 meters, which we do while maintaining a compact development of the lands. In order to support the studies required for our zoning, we did complete a D4 study through Azimuth, as there was a former waste disposal site located approximately 110 meters north of our site. And that study results had no concerns for our proposed residential development. We completed an environmental noise and vibration feasibility study through RWDI Air Inc. They did come back to us and state that in a nighttime situation, our indoor sound levels for the units that would be facing the railroad tracks do exceed the allowable 35 decibels, and they have suggested that we can mitigate this through our building envelope systems, which are actually mandated through CN Rail anyway, and we'll implement those through our site plan approval process. We had a third study done for traffic by J.D. Northcott Engineering. Now, based solely on the study indicates, of course, that we don't require any, we don't cause any operational issues, would be his language, and not add significant delay or congestion to a local roadway network. And the only recommendation came up is a hidden driveway sign 95 meters north of our site for southbound traffic. In addition to the required studies for zoning, we have begun and gone almost near completion for our functional servicing report, dealing with our site serviced by full municipal services. And we've done stormwater management programs where we are obviously meeting the 100-year requirement through on-site mitigation programs such as 2 parking lot surface storage ponds, and of course our control of post-development runoff provided through storm scepters and the like, treatment trains, dispersed runoff, vegetation filter strips, obviously some specific details through there. And of course, suitable construction mitigation will be implemented prior to construction. The official plan. Currently designates our site medium density residential, with a mix of residential densities of dwelling types permitted within a multiple family dwellings, and we're directed to medium high density residential designation. Our proposed development meets the official plan policies, we believe, because it represents infill within a serviced urban area where we have full municipal services are available. And our proposal, we believe, accommodates a type of housing that's currently lacking in the town, and we will assist in providing perhaps a more diversified housing space with perhaps a more affordable housing supply. We feel our proposal represents a residential infill within an existing neighborhood, which we believe is a goal of the town. We direct the majority of our development to the center of the property to avoid steep slopes and maintain the topographical features of the property. And our maximum allowed net density for our official plan medium residential designation is 50 units per hectare, but our development is under this at 46 units per hectare. couple other policy statements that we felt worthwhile to mention, obviously, is provincial policy statement, where we feel our proposed development conforms to the principles and goals of the policy statement by developing 160 residential units in an existing urban serviced settlement area. And we have efficient and orderly use of our infrastructure on site. With a gross plan for Northern Ontario, we again obviously feel that our proposed rezoning meets the intent of the growth plan by accommodating residential intensification and an increase in available unit types and densities within an urban area where the infrastructure and servicing capacity are available. In closing, and the simplest way to suggest this is we feel that by providing a mix and a range of housing types and densities in the town, we're providing good land use. And our proposal, we feel, is well buffered from our existing properties by locating our buildings towards the center of our property. I think I did it in 5 minutes, as you asked.
Yeah, thank you. Excellent. Okay. All right, thank you. There's no questions, Councillor McCann. This is a public meeting. They state there, and anyone else that is in favor will, and anyone else that has an opportunity to speak in opposition has that time. That comes at a later date. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that wishes to speak in favor of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment? Okay. Seeing none, then does anyone wish to speak in opposition to the proposed zoning bylaw amendment? If so, please come forward, identify yourself by name, and give your address.
Okay, I'm Elise Rensene. My family is here beside me. We bought the house on 38 Louisa Street in 2000, and we have been living there since, so it's 18 years. I also represent about 20 people. 12 of them are on a list that I submitted last week with my submission in writing, and I have another 8 of them who have signed, who are in agreement with what I'm saying today, and that have signed more recently. Those people, mostly those people are not here because they are unable to attend the meeting, or they were not sure they would be able to attend the meeting. All of them are in very close proximity to the projected development. Contrary to what you might expect, we are not opposed to all development. But if this had been a reasonable project, I, for one, would not be here to talk about it. When we bought the house, we look at the municipal plan, and hopefully you have received my submission. And when we look at the general area where we live, if you come down off Bow Street to Louisa Street, Redwood, Louisa Street, Cedar Street, Spruce Street, Brenda, Greenwood, and all the little courts like Carroll Courts and I'm forgetting one, Nancy, I think, and Queen Street, all that represent 151 dwelling. And now the plan is to put 160 of them in that little lot, which is 8.5 acres, like was mentioned before. It does not respect at all the special provision that is attached to the property at this time, which was saying a maximum of 74 units. Now we are talking 160, it's more than double. They were talking about 10.5 meters, now we are talking about 16.5 meters. The setback from the property line was 55 meters. It's much closer now. The setback for the parking was 25 meters, now it's almost against the property line in places. And I'm very concerned when I read in very small letter in the bottom here, and you need magnifier to be able to read this on top of the glasses. Since it is a contoured site with a lot of grade variation, so we have assumed grade level following cut and fill methodology. To me, in clear, that means lots of blasting. we already have, I'm talking now about the traffic and the driving on Louisa Street. Currently, when you come down Louisa Street, trying to turn left on Bowers is very difficult. It's even much worse if you are behind somebody who is trying to turn left. If you go down Queen Street, it's very difficult to turn on Bauer Street. If you go to Spruce and Edwards towards the tent market, because you want to turn right on Bowers and immediately change lane to be able to go towards the hospital, it's also a very difficult situation to do. And the hospital is a very frequent destination and is also a major employer. So at this time, the neighborhood has 151 dwellings, minus one or two because there might be an empty lot and a duplex somewhere, but it's about 150. You add 160 of them, you double, and you can be sure that you have a major backlog problem. I did glance through that report about the traffic report. It was made, if I read well, one day, January 30th, a Tuesday, no mention of weather and no mention of school buses. So I have difficulty accepting that we don't anticipate any change or any problem with the traffic. I think it is going to have a very strong impact on the infrastructure. Louisa Street at this time, as most people around here know, is pretty narrow. There is ditches on both sides. This August, after a very dry spring and summer, the first heavy rain, and we have already a crumbling side and a big hole on the side of the road, even though it's a recently repaved section. And in winter, it's even more treacherous because those ditches are covered in snow. Every single winter, there are cars who are pulled out of the ditches on both sides, just close to this future development and just below my house. Now, if you wanted to change the whole Louisa Street with a full width road, new sewers, new water line, new storm sewers, new sidewalks, and a traffic light to be able to help traffic, not only do you change completely the area, but it's going to cost an enormous amount of money, which I'm not sure the town, and which I'm pretty sure the taxpayer would object to. And on top of that, all the residents on Louisa Street are going to lose their parking space. A lot of us are parking on road allowance at this time. We are also very concerned about water runoff and melting snow. Most of the houses on the west side of Louisa Street are on inclined terrain. We already have problems with water runoff. We already ice formation on Louisa Street in quite a few different spots. You compound the problem by hard covering a whole area of a large lot, and all this water is the problem will only increase at this time. And this also brings me to the safety. As a pedestrian, Louisa Street is not a very safe street for pedestrians, particularly the built-up area from Spruce Street to Bauer Street. It's not very wide. Again, there are ditches and no sidewalk. It is well known by a lot of people. That's why all the kids are being picked up by school buses, because even if the distance to school doesn't warrant it. North of Spruce Street, the street is also narrow and with ditches, but it's a lot more quiet because it's less developed. This proposed entry road, where it's positioned now, would have an extremely steep entry exit. If you look at the topographic map, you have 10 meters elevation between the street and the top of that property, with a 43-meter length road that makes for an incline of 23%. Okay, a lot of people can argue my calculation. I didn't have all those Ganji facets too, but it's a very, passing by that place every single day, it's very steep. Again, there is no sidewalk. There would be a heavy traffic increase morning and evening rush hour. And I am concerned for the safety of the kids who are waiting for their school buses on the street. I'm also concerned for the access to that site for all the emergency services, the OPP, the firefighters, the 911. As you can hear, I'm not only concerned about our needs, but also the needs of the possible future resident there. If I was 50 years younger, I probably wouldn't want to live there. If I was 40 years younger with 3 young children, I definitely would not want to live there, having only a gigantic parking lot and a steep hill towards the railway for my kids to play. At this time, the top of Louisa Street is used for walking, for jogging, for dog walking, for cycling. I mean, like the undeveloped part of Louisa Street. But we also do not, and it's used as a park because we do not have any park of any kind in that part of the town. So change all that and making Louisa Street a major thoroughfare with sidewalk and everything and a lot of traffic. And possibly you can have, okay, let's say 160 multiplied by 2, 320, over 400 people joining the current resident and all coming here to petition the town to establish a park for that part of the town for people to use. I think the density and the general project in itself is going way overboard to what is relevant to this area. And in closing, I really want to request, when you vote on this, I would like a recorded vote.
Okay, thank you for your deputation. And now, is there anyone else that would like to speak in opposition?
Yes.
If so, you come forward, you state your name, and if there's anything new that you want to add.
Yeah.
You've already heard a fair bit.
Yeah.
So
my name is Louis Rensonet, and I'm the husband of Elise. So she was talking about the general consequence of such a project. I would like to emphasize a little more just about the half dozen houses that are on Louisa Street that will have a common limit with the new project, and that I would say are almost enclosed in the new project. I just made here a little. You can see how this property, this one and this one are enclosed in another project.
okay, thank you.
Okay. I still have to add something else. The owner of the last house of this group, so it's number 44. She is, sorry? Christine Duncan is not able to come, but she had read the written submission I made, and she agreed with it, so I can say that I'm speaking for her also. Okay. So, if I am somewhere, and I'm talking about, there is a development there. There is something happening there, and there is a road there. And I just show it like this, just by tending the hand. If I am in my property beside my house, and if
You're going to have to sit down close to the microphone because nobody can hear you
Oh, okay,
on
sorry.
web streaming.
So
Sorry.
if
Thank you.
I am near my house and I look where will be, for example, the edge of the parking lot from the new development, I'm not looking there, I'm looking there. And if I'm looking where will be the roofs of the buildings of this development, I am showing there. Actually, there is a 10 meters just of difference of level just between their what will be the next property, the next development, and mine. And it is about the same thing for the others. And it will be another 16.5 meters or 24 feet above the level of the parking lots. So that shows how particular the situation is. It is not a lot beside a lot beside a lot with a road behind and a road on the side. It is just it's just a new development above to the right and to the left. So really you are kind of completely enclosed or yeah, just almost prisoners of our house between the street and a development that is there, that is up there. So it will happen also if there is a heavy thunderstorm, heavy rain, and so on, that there will be a lot of water because it will be the surface, the area of 5 roofs, the parking lots for 200 cars, plus the little driveways that go from one parking lot to the other, and all this water will rush down on the properties of people who lived there for 20 years or even a lot more, with probably some damage and so on. And it will just hit the house eventually and so on. I know that there are storm sewer. I know there are rules for storm sewer, but I read enough about the weather news, and I know that with the climate change, there is more and more of a storm sewer that just are completely overwhelmed. Oh, and yeah, because for sure all the cracks and all the emptiness there was between the rocks, and it was until now kind of sucking all the water when there were a lot of rains should have completely disappeared. There will also, I guess, be the melting and all the snow blowed from this parking lot, and so on and so on. So for people who live there, it's a situation I would almost qualify of catastrophic. So Now, I also compare what was in the former. Okay. Okay. Just there is. There is also another problem that will be the people who want to walk very quickly to Parry Sound and do not have time or do not have the patience to go all the way through the ramp, the access ramp, and they will forcibly come through our properties. What if they, and it can be very slippery on the rocks there, what if it happens, if an accident happens, will there be a fence, or who will be responsible to maintain a fence, and so on. And about all the things coming from there, I guess there will also a lot of snow blowed with a lot of salt coming on our property also. Okay. About density, okay, about density, I know just the number that just have been given, it's very close from the limit, but to still just very close for the limit for not being already a high density, but there are still, when you look at the drawings, some places are still for future development. And I think that if we add the area that will be covered by these, then we probably are already in a high density. Okay, about the situation, because really that's really the problem there. We will be in a hole. And there will be another development there. And also, it means also that we will not have the sun in the afternoon also because of the height of these buildings. And about the density, I like to show you again this. If you look at their drawings, this whole part is actually zero density, and what is exactly here is super high density, because this one is zero density. All the high density has been pushed on our side.
Just so you know, no one can hear what you're saying on the web stream, unfortunately. So.
Okay. Just the drawing is
Yep.
speaking for itself.
Yep.
Okay, I just leave some time space for other people to speak also.
All right. Do we need any written material? We've got all that. Okay. All right. Okay. Good enough. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak in opposition? Okay. Please come forward and state your name and address.
Mayor, Council, my name is Joe Maloney. I live on Queen Street. The property on Louisa Street in question for rezoning for 160 unit has already been thoroughly dealt with in the past. The developer at the time asked for much more than 74 units. I believe it was 120 units that he was granted. He claimed he wanted to build a retirement residence, and he supplied a site plan. That said, a retirement residence has nothing to do with zoning density, and in order to ensure that the usage met the town planning, they limited the size of the units. That's the only requirement that a retirement was, just the size of each unit. The town planners also limited it to 74 units based on developing long-term projections for Louisa Street and area. There's a lot of area to develop beyond that. The entire rebuild and reconfiguration of Louisa Street's infrastructure, alignment, sidewalks, sewer, water, hydro, etc., was to be dealt with at that time at the expense of the developer. Council agreed residents should not be burdened with this expense of millions of dollars. At present, we have open ditches. Some of them are 6 feet deep, no sidewalks. Louisa Street is already used as a high-speed bypass to the south end by many people. It has always been this way for the neighborhood, and no taxpayer money has ever been allocated for these upgrades in consideration of past and present residents. And I'm sure the town actually has a lot better things to spend the money on than that anyway. Although local residents at the time were not against the proposed retirement home, this new proposed development is not at all realistic for the neighborhood, and the size of it is not realistic for the community as a whole. This would be a substantial project even for a large city such as Parry, where they have diverse, good-paying employment opportunities. The retirement residence, as it's presently zoned, and the many jobs it would bring, would be a much more realistic project, with the developer paying for the costs of all the infrastructure upgrades as were previously required. And I thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak in opposition? Please come forward, state your name, your address.
My name is Chris O'Graham, and I'm here because I'm concerned about the emergency services we have for such a development. We currently can't look after our own hospital and our own people, so if a virus was to break out or people were to get ill in the building, what are we going to do? If we have a fire at Silver Birch and that unit at the same time, what are we going to do? There's a lot of unanswered things that need to be looked forward into a future before such a big thing takes place. That's basically what I have to say.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak in opposition? Please come forward, state your name.
Hi, I'm Martha Martins. I live on 15 Queen Street. I'm here because I have a little 8-year-old boy, and he loves to play on Queen Street. He doesn't get much iPad time, but he gets lots of bicycle time. What I'm concerned about is the amount of traffic that's going to be on Queen Street if this development comes through. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak? Please come forward.
Good evening. My name is Corinne McKee, and I live at 30 Louisa. And 2 of those buildings are proposed are at the top of my property. My concern too is the traffic that's going to be on Louisa. We have a sinkhole for the last 2 weeks at the bottom of our property, and there's a sinkhole further up the street. There's been pylons there for 2 weeks and nothing has been done. When this is going to, if this goes through and the water that's going to be coming down is going to cause more havoc. We can't stop change and we can't stop growth. This is the last town in the north. Gravenhurst is being built up, Bracebridge is being built up, Huntsville is being built up. Parry Sound needs to bring in more jobs for young people and that, but I would really like council to really look at this and to think through all the things that has been brought forth from the table. It's already been approved for 74 by 160. And is it going to be rentals or is it going to be condos? That can bring a whole lot of other things that we already have issues on our street as it is right now. Thank you.
Thank you. come forward, state your name and address. And yeah, sure. Yeah. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Clayton Hall, and I'm the owner of the 4.9 acre lot abutting the applicant's property. I would first like to say that as a local construction business owner, that I support development in our community. The property that I own is one of the highest properties within the town that includes breathtaking views over the town of Parry Sound and Georgian Bay. I've attached the sketch for everyone to. My concern or objection with the project is over the to view my property. Potential adverse impacts it may have on my lands in terms of density and the height. A loss of view from my lands could have serious financial impacts. Therefore, I cannot support this project as I need to be assured that my property will not be adversely affected. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak in opposition to the project? Yep, come forward. This is your opportunity.
Hello, my name is Melissa Felton, and I am a resident on Louisa Street. Outside of what has been spoken about today so far, I'd like to bring it to the attention of everyone here, if they don't know this, but several years ago, the Board of Education had done an analysis on Louisa Street. They had deemed it a hazard zone, as it is right now. Meaning, when Victory School was open, they had changed the radius or distance where children would have to walk beyond a certain age to Victory School and the like to the high school. So now busing is available for students of all ages to the high school, or it would have continued to Victory School, given their assessment and their analysis of it being basically a hazard zone due to several things: no sidewalks, speed limits, the reduction in space during the wintertime on the road when driving. Those things necessarily haven't changed. So if anybody either lives in that area or walks frequently in that area, you will find yourself often dodging cars. I cannot imagine what it would be like with more residents, and we want to keep our children outside and playing and so forth, and enjoying their spaces outside. For me, seeing several cones on that road and having a washout on a regular basis outside of my driveway, I don't know if that will change. It will need to change regardless of what happens with a new development, but these are things that are happening because that road is just deteriorating. And so to put 160 residents, whether it's going to be retirement or non in the end, and I'm still not clear on that personally, and I don't know if I can ask that question or not. I do believe from a retirement point of view, where's the accessibility for people that don't drive, or people that need to get around, or walking is the only the way motorized accessibility vehicles, things like that. How will they get around on Louisa Street? So you're just basically causing more congestion with the more people that are traveling up and down that road, and you're just creating more danger. Anyhow, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else? This is your opportunity. This is the public meeting for anyone that wants to voice their concern. It was either for or against, and so. No? Yep. State your name and address.
My name is Jean Beckett, and I live over on Meadow Street, not Louisa. But sitting here listening to this, I have one question. Is this affordable housing? Parry Sound needs accessible, affordable housing, not penthouses on the hill. Thank you.
Anyone else that wishes to speak in opposition to the development? Seeing none, Then, I thank everyone for their attention at the meeting. Mr. Elgie, have there been any letters received as a result of this notice?
Through your worship, yes, there has. The first letter was received by Catherine Novak. I'll just summarize all the letters. They'll all be attached to the council report, so if anyone feels I don't address their points 100%, they will be provided to council in their original form. They feel that there's too much associated parking surface and it's far too concentrated. Hardening this much of the natural area will have detrimental impacts to the environment, especially in regards to stormwater runoff and snow management. They question why does it have to be so tall when most other developments in town are restricted to 3 stories. They regularly walk Louisa Street and other streets adjacent to it, and they already find it unsafe because of blind corners, narrow crumbling surfaces, and the lack of sidewalks. Access points to Bow Street will become very congested and may necessitate lights. Lastly, they believe that the development and its nature is just too intense, and the impact on the feel of the neighborhood from a quiet suburban residential area to something far more noisier, busier, and more urban. The next letter is received from Kevin and Kelly Crowhurst. They're also concerned, largely due to the increase in traffic within the neighborhood during construction phases and into the future, due to the numerous infrastructure changes that will be needed to accommodate this type of unit. Going from the 74 retirement unit residences, they realize that either development would increase even the traffic more so than what's already approved, too much for the existing road corridors, and also the other streets like Spruce. Turning left onto Edward, Queen, or Louisa from Bow, or onto Bow, sorry, can be frustrating and at times dangerous. They question whether an expansion of the street would be necessary. If so, what will that do to the property values with reduced front yards? What about the hydro and other services? Are they sufficient, or would they have to be upgraded? Will the light poles have to be upgraded? Lastly, there are concerns about the safety for their children, and they would ask council not approve it. Another submission from Joe Bossart was submitted, generally in favor of the development, which would be one of the largest in towns, rivaling Silver Birch. He notes, though, that improvements will be required for Louisa Street. It's already in very poor condition. There's already issues with traffic going both opposite directions at the same time. And beyond the first 100 meters, the road continues to be surprisingly narrow and winding. The traffic situation merging onto Bowes can be challenging already with little development on the road. It seems the obvious solution would be to add traffic lights to the Forest Bowes intersection, near the 4th Street, I guess. Water and sewer services will need to be properly managed to ensure that they can maintain the current levels of service, especially the water pressure. Also suggests that if it's going to go forward, that sufficient buffering be added around the property's edges to maintain privacy of the immediate surrounding properties. Another letter from April Leach was submitted, strongly opposed to the approval, notes that the 16.5 meters requested does not comply with the requirements of the R2 or R3 zones. They think this will ultimately lead to a decrease in all Louisa Street property values, as they've seen in other areas of town after apartment dwellings were constructed. Also has concerns about the higher traffic volumes and both the bodies and vehicles that brings it to this would bring to the roadway, as well as safety for the children. They also feel that the lot isn't acceptable for this type of development because it's too rocky and will necessitate blasting. Servicing and extending water and storm sewer services will not be great for the surrounding properties, and blasting might have ill effects on adjacent properties' foundations. Another letter was submitted by Mary Bertrand. They have concerns about traffic as well, especially turning left onto Bowes. You already run a risk of being getting in a collision. The lack of sidewalks isn't acceptable, and it's dangerous for children waiting for school buses, pedestrians, and bicyclists. The elderly won't find this road safe to walk on with more development. Fears for children's safety as well. And Elise and Louis Rensono, who spoke tonight, they submitted comments as well that reflected what their presentation was tonight. Lastly, Lakeland Power noted that the hydro isn't sufficient there and we need upgrading.
Very good. Okay. Council at its discretion may approve the proposed zoning bylaw amendment. If so, it must either circulate notice of passing of the bylaw or give notice in the local press. Objections to the passing of the bylaw will be received by the clerk within 20 days from the date of such notice is given, which objections will be forwarded to the local planning appeal tribunal. If an appeal is submitted and the appellant has not provided council with an oral or written submission before the passing of the bylaw, the local planning appeal tribunal may choose to dismiss the appeal. Thank you. And may I have a mover and seconder to declare the public meeting closed? Councillor Borneman, Councillor McCann, that we do now declare the public meeting closed. All in favor? That's carried. And so, thank you. That ends that portion of the meeting. Maybe we'll have a 5-minute recess while people Okay, we're good to go. We'll bring the meeting back to order. Get everyone's attention. We'll bring the meeting back to order, and we'll get the show on the road here with the rest of the meeting. May I have a mover and seconder for the minutes, please? Councillor Horn, Councillor Borneman, that the minutes of the regular council meeting held August 14th, 2018 be approved as circulated. Any discussion on those minutes? Seeing none, all in favor? And that's carried. We do have a request to move up item 10.11. Can I see council support to do that? Okay, I'm getting a wave. Good. I think I've got enough here, so we will move up 10.11. Questions of staff? Councillor Borneman, and then Councillor Keith.
I have 3 separate questions. I'm going to direct to Mr. Menz, and he can send them wherever he chooses.
Okay.
So the first one is everyone's got their hockey jersey on tonight. It's no longer a secret. Hometown hockey is coming here. I've had a number of people in the community ask if and when we're going to form committees to sort of wrestle with this. So take it away, Mr. Menz. When are we going to do that? And how do we get that process rolling?
Through Mr. Mayor, there have been meetings so far, marketing meetings between April McNamara and with the DBA and with the Chamber of Commerce. So they have been ongoing. Tomorrow there is an events meeting with minor hockey at 10 o'clock in the morning. Minor hockey will be actively involved. This is a Rogers event. They are putting the entire event together as and all of the events within the main event. So the key stakeholders, minor hockey being one of those key events, or the key organization that will be involved. What that will look like will be much better known after tomorrow, but so far the Chamber of Commerce and the DBA have been actively involved. So for there to be one committee, I don't think that's going to be an outcome. It's going to be partners as necessary, the key one being minor hockey for the events.
Community will be notified going forward.
Yeah.
Second question is, today it was announced that Midland has been hacked and there are consequences with respect to confidentiality and potentially finances. Are we doing everything that we can to avoid that possibility?
Through again, Mr. Mayor, as you might recall, some 3 years ago, we did a complete upgrade of our IT infrastructure, the hardware and the software. So everything is new within the town. Everything is backed up now onto the cloud on a daily basis. So no one wants to be hacked, certainly the town no more than the town of Midland. But if we were, I believe we are as prepared as we can be for such an event. It would cause us some serious angst for probably a couple of days. I am aware of organizations where it's happened and they are able to recover without paying the ransom, but it depends really on how good their firewalls are and how good their backup system is, and I think ours is as good as the best of them out there.
Yep. And the last one, and I know you've are aware of this. Most recently, I was contacted by a contractor in Parry Sound who was concerned about our policy regarding non-tendered work, how that's managed, and you know, his, I think, concern at the end of the day was that everyone has equal shot for the jobs that come up through the town that are under $10,000. So I guess my question is, do we need to review our procurement policy? Does that end of it need to be tightened up? How do we go about that? And you need time to give us some sort of recommendation in that regard.
Through again, Mr. Mayor, the procurement policy and bylaw that we do have, it was updated about 3.5, 4 years ago. It's pretty current, pretty up to standard. It's in terms of ensuring that there's equal opportunity. To the extent that we can, we do that. If there's a contractor that we're not aware of that is in a particular business or a service provider that's in a particular business. We don't know we don't maintain a list of preferred contractors or suppliers. We have people that we would go to that have provided us services in the past or products in the past. If with contractors, we find that it's hard to get a contractor to get anything done because they're so busy out there in the private sector. But we do our best to give proper opportunity to any contractor. The recent case, I think it was just more one of awareness and familiarity of that particular contractor, and that's been made now. To go back and review the policy, we will have a look at it. We'll talk about it. Whether there's anything necessary to come back to council as a recommendation or not, I'm not sure, but we can get back to council on that.
Okay, very good. Is there any, that was it? Okay. I think Councillor Keith, you had your hand up, and then Councillor Horn.
Yes, thank you. Very quick question for Mr. Brown. CNR, are we making a little bit of progress there, Mr. Brown? William Street.
Through your worship, I'm assuming this is with regards to the William Street Bridge. Yep, we've contact's been made with CNR, and there will be a meeting on site with a representative from CNR in the next several weeks to review the signage that's there, the amount of signs that are there, the quality of signs that are there, and how big the signs are to make sure that we're following the compliance and the rules, and that they're going to come to the table and offer suggestions if there are any more.
Yep.
We're on the right button now. Mr. Brown, I also want to say something very complimentary. Of course, it's really a follow-through for, again, CNR, but going over the Cascade Bridge, on Cascade Street, the railroad tracks, I must say it has been a delight for the last few days. So the fact that they got it nicely paved, I can only hope that it continues. And I think this could be a good sign for the future, I hope, with CNR.
Let's hope so. Councillor Horn.
Thank you. My question is for Ms. Dyer from Bobby Orr Hall of Fame and our newest curator for the Bobby Orr Hall of Fame. Ms. Dyer, I was wondering if you could come up to the front and just give us an update on how the Bobby Orr Hall of Fame golf tournament went, and also the story behind this picture that you're about to bring up, and I can give you a hand.
Through you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
On
And
Friday,
welcome.
August the 17th, we were fortunate to have hold the annual Bobby Orr Hall of Fame Celebrity Golf Classic, which went really well. We got very lucky with the weather. The clouds cleared and the golfers played through. It was a wonderful day. We raised a lot of money to support the operations of the Hall of Fame. And one added element to the tournament this year was a painter named David Arrigo. We made contact with him at the Sport Card and Memorabilia Show, an event that we attend annually in Toronto. He came up to Parry Sound for the day, and on the day of the tournament, he created this painting of Mr. Orr out at the golf course. I watched him working on it. It was fascinating to see his process. And we auctioned off this painting on the evening of the tournament to one anonymous donor who graciously donated it back to the Hall of Fame. So it will be on display in the hall shortly, as soon as we can find an appropriate place to hang it up. But
Sorry, question?
I don't know if this is a question. I thought there were two pretty charitable
that's what I heard.
purchasers of that photo, Ms. Dyer. Maybe you could expand.
Yes, there was some competition over acquiring this painting. It was purchased twice, actually, on the evening of the golf tournament.
Yeah.
It was auctioned first to one generous anonymous donor who donated it back to the Hall of Fame. We put it up for auction again. A second purchaser purchased it and then donated it back to the Hall of Fame so that we could display it. So it.
So I guess that's where it belongs.
I guess it is, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good job, Anna.
Yeah. Any further questions of staff? Nope. Okay. Correspondence, Ms. Boggs.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. The first item is a letter from the City of North Bay. They're making a request to the province for more stable, long-term, or permanent funding to give stability to the film industry in Northern Ontario. This was circulated to Mayor and Council and forwarded to myself for follow-up. And there's a resolution on this evening's agenda about that. Joseph Retz, 7A Addy Street. A letter about the sale, Halverston to Retz, 7A Addy Street. Concerns with the right-of-way. This was circulated to Mayor and Council and forwarded to the Manager of Building and Planning Services for follow-up. The next letter is from Barry Rideout, resident of the Township of the Archipelago. He's complaining that Parry Sound has no drinking water available for him to use. This was circulated to Mayor and Council and forwarded to the Director of Public Works for follow-up. Jean and Rick Beckett, 10 Meadow Street. They have some concerns with flooding issues on their property due to changes in nearby properties. This was circulated to Mayor and Council and forwarded to the Director of Public Works for follow-up. We received some email watch files of August 9th, 16th, and 23rd, which contains municipal industry news, and it was circulated to Mayor and Council and forwarded to the Clerk for inclusion on the consent agenda. And correspondent items 4.6 to 4.9 were reviewed by the Manager of Building and Planning Services during the public meeting this evening. And that's it, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Next, our deputation portion of the meeting. I'd like to remind the deputations here tonight, they have a maximum of 10 minutes each, including questions of clarification from council. Deputations are subject to the same rules of conduct as members of council, and no one shall speak disrespectfully or use offensive words or insulting expressions against any member of council, staff, or another member of the public. And distance from the microphone is about 1 foot to 1.5 feet or whatever, so that you don't get too much feedback. So our first deputation tonight is Thomas Doswell. Welcome, Tom.
Reminds me of CKLP days when we had the push button. Anyway, hey, we got to have a little bit of a smile here because it has some seriousness. So I just want everybody to have a happy mood because this is what the intention of this is, to be supportive of as we move forward. The growth of the fringer population, what it means to Ontario and Canada and Parry Sound. We often hear that all base levels of government state that it cannot be all things to all people. That means the fringe, the poor, WSIB, or retired get hit with pain, mental anguish, and suffering beyond imagination. So as municipal election choices hit the headlines, let us put the fringer problem out to voters and candidates, explain if they want to increase or the growing numbers or what plans they have to reduce fringers and by how many. What will it cost the fringer and family members who will fall into fringer territory and what cost to taxpayers? Workers in Ontario now have frozen incomes and most often no pension plans. That means a whole lot of less spending as prices rise and we see rise in fringer numbers with warnings of suicide increases as of late. We could limit fringer growth by allowing folks to shack up without penalty and reducing housing needs. I understand that may be happening. We could limit fringer growth by allowing folks to shack up. I already said that one. Patrick Brown, PC, had stated that low-wage workers are needed to grow small businesses. This is the attitude I find that will grow more fringer numbers in our area. Now to provide a snapshot of events some fringers now face in the area. And please listen to the end for suggesting before you mindset sets on it's not my problem. We have reports of a small business outside of town that fined by WSIB and put a worker in fringer territory with a mix of ORGs or ODSP and EI paybacks. The A's now have a very low income increase, supplements to federal austerity, and now fringers barely getting by. many reports that those who marry a disabled partner now face a very repressive clawback and of income due to one partner working. This is something that has been an ongoing printer issue that Norm Miller might become aware of when he first came to office. We now hear that Ford will soon remove rent control and allow markets to dictate rent increase prices. Even businesses in the area are alarmed by the thought of being able to hang on to workers when this ideal becomes real. I agree with Mr. Ford that landlords should never be on the hook to provide social housing to support profit for the greedy. Reports indicate that one measure will overload social services. No more pension plans create more fringers. A huge dental bill or costly drugs not covered by a plan could increase fringers. A fringer working BG in a movie earned $300 but ended up losing almost double that amount, an issue that seen self-esteem go out the window. The good news here is that the reports that mayor and council have some limited funds available to work with those in need. I would encourage voters to back the mayor and council on plans to have funds that need to be in place to help fringers and not deplete monies for the sake of tax cuts that hurt fringers and businesses that will need a helping hand. My next page. There have been suggestions that low rent fringers pay is amazing and they should be thankful, yet fail to think that the fringer had an employer who paid or provided a good pension. The fringer would be off taxpayer supports and not a victim of side demands that sprout out that are part of a repressing, demoralizing situation due to the effects of DSAB, including troubled SAM's software. Please, fringers would love to pay full rent without the DSAB extra baggage and taxpayers blamed for increase due to greed. After much study and discussion, the fringers asked that a lethal injection site be set up to escape the pain and anguish. It's in the paper all over the place. This may appeal to tax cut bunch that will see less need for tax dollars to go to fringer upkeep. At this time, I see there's no will to adjust changes for outcomes of the fringer, and I have this little mem here that talks about, what happens when somebody gets married. They just get cut and cut and cut. I lost $80,000 out of my family's income. That's a lot of money. Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Okay, thank you. Any questions of Mr. Doswell while he's here? No?
Thank you, sir.
Do we have copies of all that?
Yep.
Okay, all right.
Yep.
So staff can review it and discuss with appropriate.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. So next we come to Mayor and Councilor's reports, and we'll start with maybe Councilor Borneman tonight. Is that good?
Thank you, Your Worship. Good evening, everyone. I had the pleasure of volunteering at the Bobby Orr Golf Classic on the 17th of August, and I want to thank John Green and his troop for all of the time and effort they put into that, and Ms. Dyer and the staff at the Hall of Fame and Stocky Center for the excellent work that they do on our behalf down there. Their efforts were well received by all in attendance. On August 22nd, I attended a meeting of the Belvedere Heights Board of Directors. Our draft strat plan was accepted, pending final corrections, I'll say, and we expect that it'll be publicly unveiled in the very near future. Annual general meeting is being planned as well. We were told that the resident quality inspectors had been on site between August 7th and 17th, and that report should be received sometime later this month. And finally, the final five-year mortgage was transferred to Scotiabank at a significant savings. On August 29th, I attended a public open house with respect to the sidewalks on Isabella Street. The event was relatively well attended. Most residents were quite receptive to the plan as the road moves the street some 3 feet to the south, allowing those along the Elizabeth Court side of the street room for a flower garden. some residents on the southern side of the street were somewhat concerned is that they would be losing some trees in their front yards, and there will be a pretty significant retaining wall along that section. I want to remind everyone that this Saturday, September 8th, is the 15th annual fly-in at the Parry Sound Area Airport. I want to assure people that the quality of food will probably be up because I'm not available to man the barbecue, so you can feel more confident in the wares. I want to congratulate Chris Lee, local hockey player, Canadian Olympian. Chris was recently honored by his Russian team, Magnitogorsk, who retired his number, which is a pretty prestigious thing for any player, and it's especially big for a foreign-born player in the Russian league. It just doesn't happen. And finally, school has started. Slow down, be safe out there. We have enough statistics in the community without adding to them and being regretful. So that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Good reminder. It was a busy area around the high school. Gibson Street and Isabella Street and Joseph Street today. Councillor McCann.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council and staff, people watching here and at home. Councillor Borneman just stole my parade, so I think I'll ad-lib for a bit. But yes, we did have our Belvedere Heights Board of Management meeting, and as Councillor Borneman mentioned, there's lots of good things happening there. The strategic planning has been ongoing, and we expect to have that out in the very, very near future. So I'll talk about the Friends of Belvedere, and my wife and I have had an opportunity to spend a few weekends out at the various transfer stations collecting beer bottles and wine bottles and such for the Friends. It's we want to thank everybody in Parry Sound and the surrounding areas for donating to this cause. We want to thank Crop Industries for providing a special bin, and they're working on more. I want to thank the North Star for printing up a story in the Beacon this past weekend with what the program's all about. So what I'm saying is that if you've got some cans and bottles, pop cans, the aluminum, they're all worth money to the Friends of Belvedere, which raises money for the seniors, the outreach program through community support services, and some of the funds help the the residents as well too with their needs. It's a great cause, and I hope that you'll look for those specially marked bins the next time you're at any of the transfer stations. And as Mr. Borneman said, the students are back in school. Good luck to all of them, and drivers, please do watch for them and slow down. And thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Horn.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I had the privilege of attending the Association of Municipalities of Ontario conference from August 18th to August 22nd in Ottawa, Ontario. It was one of the largest AMO conferences ever, as 2,000 delegates were there from across the province, including councillors and reeves and mayors. The highlight, of course, was our Mayor Jamie McGarvey taking over as president of the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, which is fantastic honor, a great reward for his work in municipal politics. And now he's the head of the organization that leads 444 municipalities in Ontario. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Horn.
Thanks. I attended a number of sessions throughout the conference, but due to the time and how long we've been here, I don't want to go through all the 15 that I attended. So they were all very worthwhile, and the updates in terms of technology and planning for infrastructure for our municipalities is key moving forward. Of course, one of the biggest sessions was the new government, and each year at AMO, the ministers attend the session called the Bear Pit, where municipal councillors get to ask questions of the new ministers. So there had to be 2,000 people in the room asking the new Ford government ministers some very pertinent questions that involve our municipalities moving forward. Also, the next biggest session was on the legalization of marijuana. And as we all know, on October 17th, the legalization in Ontario through online purchases begins. And the government has downloaded the responsibility for stores in our municipalities to us as municipal councillors moving forward. So each council across Ontario will have the opportunity to say yes or no to have stores that would be able to sell marijuana and paraphernalia in their councils. So I'm sure Mayor McGarvey has more information on that session, but it was very insightful, and there are a number of questions. There's a number of pros and cons that we will have to take into consideration if we are approached by a business to open up a cannabis store here in Parry Sound. Fantastic conference. Really enjoyed meeting some of the outgoing councillors that have served in their local municipalities for 40-some years, and wonderful service to the public. On August 27th, I attended the planning board meeting, and there was consent applications granted to Parry Sound, McKellar, Carling, and McDougall. And thank you very much for everyone that's been involved in hometown hockey. We heard about it officially when we were at the AMO conference, and we told all the other municipalities that hometown hockey is coming to Parry Sound, and we're the second stop. So it should be great weather in October. Please come out on the Sunday and support our community and support what we're all about in terms of providing recreation to our youth. Thank you. That's my report.
Thank you. Councillor Keith.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, fellow councillors, staff, and the public. First of all, I hope everybody had a lovely Labor Day weekend, and of course, the young people, I'm sure, are happily attending school again, and maybe some of their parents are happy too. And then I would say, first of all, since the last council meeting, I attended the antique car show, which was downtown, and that was a really great turnout that the Downtown Business Association had. And as deputy mayor, I had the privilege of picking the mayor's choice. So I ended up with a 1961 Corvette that was blue and white. It was my kind of wild little car, and so I was up for the challenge. And the owners of the car were very kind to me. They were very gracious. They actually let me sit in the car and have a couple of pictures. So at least that was pretty good. Then I attended also the powwow at Shawnee First Nation that same day, and I was involved in the parade and brought well wishes, of course, from mayor and the council, and it was quite an enjoyable event. Then I had the fun of driving up to Sudbury for a one-day conference, a Women's Day conference that was going to, I thought, be able to advise me of some insightful information. But the most insightful thing I had was to get up there and find out that even in this great world of technology and all these planes, sometimes the planes don't fly and the co-facilitators didn't make it. So at the last minute, it was canceled. So my big flight, so to speak, was from Parry Sound to Sudbury return with no more information. So that was a little disappointed. The Parry Sound Area Planning Board has just been mentioned, and as was mentioned by Councillor Borneman, I too attended the information session on Isabella reconstruction, and that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Marshall.
Good evening, everybody. I've had a fairly slow last 2 weeks, no meetings with any of the committees I'm on, and I was on vacation for one of those weeks. Councillor Borneman, Councillor McCann brushed on a few of the things I was going to speak about, so I'll let those go. Just want to remind everybody that the Festival of Authors is coming up in October on the 24th, It's going to be at the Stocky Center between 7:30 and 9:30, and tickets are available through the Stocky Center, of course. There's 4 authors coming up this year: Catherine Aschenberg, James Fitzgerald, Wayne Grady, and Marilyn Simmons. They're all going to be doing readings from their recent novels. And one of the things I'm going to do this year, because I always go to it and never read the books until afterwards. So I've got all 4 books on my iPad, and I've already started to read them. So by the time we get to the 24th, I'm going to be well versed on all the books. So if you have never gone to it, they're an amazing event. The authors are fantastic. They're there for book signings, talk about their novels. So if you're into literature, it's a great opportunity. That's my report for tonight. Thanks.
Maybe they'll get you to do a reading. Hmm? Sure. There you go. Yeah, or one of the others. Yeah. Yeah. So, council, staff, and public, August 16th, I attended the Parry Sound District Municipal Association Executive Meeting in Sundridge. Purpose of the meeting was to work on finalizing the agenda for the fall meeting. And the fall meeting will be held September 21st at the Christie Community Center in Orville. As Councillor Horn mentioned, the AMO conference, August 17th, I headed to Ottawa for that conference. For 119 years, AMO has been representing Ontario's municipalities. August 18th, I attended an AMO board meeting. The 19th, I attended another board meeting and then chaired my last Ontario Small Urban Municipalities meeting. Graydon Smith, the Mayor of Bracebridge, is the new incoming chair, and Gail Ardell, the vice chair. The OSIM board has been a great group of people to work with over the years, and certainly, yeah, they're just a great group of people. August 19th in the afternoon through to 11 a.m. on August 22nd was the main conference. The trade show speakers and a great variety of sessions and networking. It was a very busy conference. A good number of MPPs were on hand through the conference and for the Bear Pit session, as Councillor Horn mentioned on Tuesday afternoon. I received many compliments from delegates as to how well the conference was run and the selection of topics for the conference. Pat Vanini and the AMO staff are to be commended for all of their hard work in putting this conference together and managing it. They've certainly already began planning for 2019, so it takes a lot to put that conference together. AMO staff kept me busy throughout the conference, and on the 22nd I was installed as president, as Councillor Horn mentioned. So at 11:30 on August 22nd, I chaired my first AMO board meeting, and I'd like to commend Lynn Dolan, past AMO president, for all of her work over the past 2 years. I'd also like to thank Councillor Horn for attending the conference. The conference is a great opportunity to learn, outreach, and network with people from all areas across our vast province. There were about 2,000 delegates in attendance at this conference, and on top of that, there's trade show people, speakers, and government representatives. So a huge number of people to coordinate through that event. And I'd also like to mention a thank you to Mayor Watson of Ottawa and the city staff and the many volunteers that helped throughout the conference. With regard to the cannabis legislation, there are a huge number of questions, and I've informed our CAO with regard to the documentation from AMO, which we should be looking at. There are a number of questions that need to be considered and asked, and any decision on this item is the first order of business for any new municipal council in Ontario, and that has come down from the province. Rogers Hometown Hockey. So that's why everyone's dressed tonight in a jersey. This is the Rogers Hometown Hockey jersey that they happened to present me with, and it's signed by Ron McLean and Tara Sloan, the two hosts, which I'm pretty proud of. So we decided tonight that council members, I'd wear this jersey, and council members would wear, and Mr. Menz happened to get a jersey tonight too, would wear Bobby Orr Hall of Fame jerseys to promote hometown hockey in our community. As many know, this is a free event. It's family oriented, which will give Parry Sound national coverage. We certainly have to like that. I really appreciate the Hometown Hockey Group for reaching out to our community, and also like our staff, thank our staff, volunteers, and local businesses for stepping up to help with this event. This is going to be a big event. They will be here for actually longer than the 2-day period of the actual festival itself. But there's going to be a lot going on during that time. And again, it is family oriented, so it all accumulates at the end or whatever with culminates with a hockey game and national coverage and great opportunity to showcase our community. And the fall colors should be really good at that particular time too. So let's look forward to it and do the best that we can to promote this community and have it look really, really good. So that's my report. And I did neglect to ask if there were any more deputations because we were within the 30 minutes. So were there any deputations? I know, Mr. Jackson, you have an item on the agenda tonight. I didn't know whether you had anything that you wanted to add to that particular item. You're good? Okay. So if anyone did, they have an opportunity now. If not, we'll get on with the agenda. So on with the agenda. And so ratification from closed. Item 7.1, heard deputation from Joe Rates, resident of Parry Sound, regarding a planning matter. 7.2, council provided direction to staff regarding a planning matter. 7.3, Stocky Center reorganization revision. And the resolution, 7.3, moved by Councillor Horn and seconded by Councillor Keith. The council approved the revised organizational chart for the Charles W. Stocky Center and Performing Arts and Bobby Orr Hall of Fame attached to Schedule A to reflect the elimination of the Stocky Center front of house position and the creation of a volunteer and hospitality position and recreation of a marketing coordinator position effective September 14th, 2018. Discussion. Councillor Borneman.
So, Mr. Menz, maybe you could advise the public why we've gone in this direction and when you expect these jobs to be advertised.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, this is a reorganization. The council had directed earlier this year that we create the position of communication officer, and that's not happening for various reasons. That position was to do, amongst other things, look after marketing for the town and including the Stocky Center. So now that that's not happening, there has been a departure of a staff member at the Stocky Center. It created an opportunity to look at how we should be organizing. The short of it is we're creating really two new positions. One is a part-time position. There's no net increase in cost or in staffing to the Stocky Center or to the town. It's just a way of better organizing in light of the circumstances. And the position one, will be moving up an internal person who's been in the position for doing a number of jobs at the Stocky Center, and she will move into that position. She's working close to a full-time position now, and the other position, our HR coordinator is on vacation this week, so once she gets back, she'll be on that, and we'll go forward from there.
Okay, very good, thank you. Any further questions? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried, thank you. Okay. And then we had item 7.4, which was a resolution or direction towards a memorandum of understanding, which this is the resolution for that. So moved by Councillor Marshall and seconded by Councillor McCann. The council adopts the memorandum of understanding per the 2018 collective agreement negotiations per attached Schedule A. Discussion? All in favor? That's carried. Moving on, so item 8.1. Moved by Councillor Keith and seconded by Councillor Horn that the council for the town of Parry Sound appoint Bernard Keating, Amy Black, and Tanis Mack to the Parry Sound Downtown Business Association Board of Directors for the term ending November 30th, 2018. Any discussion? Councillor Borneman?
I realize this is late in the day and that these appointments will only last until the current end of council, but hopefully this is a way for these folks to get their feet wet and determine that they're prepared to make the commitment through the next term. It's always a challenge filling that board. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. Thank you. Any further comments, questions? No? All in favor? That's carried. Good. Okay, all right. So item 8.2, moved by Councillor Borneman and seconded by Councillor McCann. Whereas the film industry in Parry Sound added approximately $25 million in 2016, $600,000 in 2017, and $10 million in 2018 to the economy of Parry Sound. And whereas NOHFC funding for the industry is a large part of the attraction to utilizing our town and our people as staff in the productions as well as in other northern cities. And whereas the NOHFC funding application process continues to be short-term, with current information on their website indicating funding applications are only currently open until the fall of 2018. And a more stable, long-term, or permanent funding would give more stability to the industry and the jobs and the impact it has here as well as across Northern Ontario. Therefore, be it resolved that the Council of the Town of Parry Sound supports the City of North Bay's Resolution 2018-229, attached to Schedule A, and calls upon the province to make the funding of the film industry either more long-term, as in 10-year commitments, or a permanent commitment. Discussion. Councillor Borneman.
I would hope that this would be sent to Minister Fideli. As a former mayor of North Bay, I would hope that he would have an ear to this, that he would recognize how important this is to Northern Ontario.
Yep. There's a rather long list of people that this is going to, and then we will reiterate that along with our local people that we should be contacting as well. Because this is good money for the area. It has been. Councillor Horn.
Thank you. Could you just repeat that number for 2018 and the investment?
$10 million.
$10 million is significant for a town of our size and the employment and business opportunities. So I think this is a very important message to the new Ford government.
Mm-hmm. Thanks. Anything further? Councillor McCann.
Thanks. This is just a comment. I've heard from various cab drivers around the area that they've often, of course, transported people who work in the film industry, actors and such, and they've always been, the drivers have been overwhelmed with compliments of Parry Sound, and the people that come here, they feel welcomed, they want to come back, and so that I think that says a lot for our area in welcoming this industry, and we hope that there are many years to come.
That's right. Anything further? All in favor? And that's carried. Okay. Moved by Councillor Keith and seconded by Councillor Horn that bylaw number 2018-6851, being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 2004-4653, the zoning bylaw as amended for 1 Joseph Street, John Jackson Planner Incorporated, on behalf of Microsuite Properties Limited, be considered as read a first time. All in favor? That's carried. All members in favor of having the second and third readings? Carried. Moved by Councillor Keith and seconded by Councillor Horn that the bylaw above mentioned be considered as read a second and third time, passed, signed, and sealed. Any discussion? Councillor McCann.
I think I may stand alone on this one, but I've talked to some people who live in the area over there, and I'm going to give them a voice, and I'd like to, I'm not going to support this particular motion. I think that the number of units that are spoken for, or that are in the zoning before this change was asked for, would be sufficient, and so this is my voice for them.
Okay. Any further questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Any opposed? One opposed. It's carried. Okay. Direction. I need a mover and seconder for the direction, please. Councillor Marshall and Councillor Keith. And the direction will be that the CAO September 4th, 2018 report on discarded needles be received for information. Mr. Mintz, your report.
Well, Mr. Mayor, I'm not sure what else I can add on to what's in the report. The health unit is the lead agency in terms of prevention and treatment. Really, our role, the town's responsibility, it's not very clearly defined, but at a minimum, it's public safety, and we tend to that by department staff, particularly Public Works and Parks and Rec staff, haven't been properly trained by the health unit in how to collect and dispose of needles and paraphernalia related to drugs. That's been done. There is proper procedures in place. Statistically, the count on what we find on municipal property doesn't seem to be significant from information that's gathered. So we will carry on doing what we're doing in terms of the collection and disposal. There are disposal units at a few locations, at the transfer station, at the public washrooms, at the BLCC. And if there's anything else the council would like us to do as staff, we would need that direction.
Okay. All right. So that's basically a synopsis of your report,
yes.
Which is good. So I'll take questions from council, and Councillor Marshall, Councillor Keith, and then Councillor Borneman.
Yes, thanks for your report. One of the things I got out of it, and I like to see out of this, and I kind of agree with the recommendations that staff makes, but I'd like to have the health unit in here at some point to speak at a council meeting to give to bring us kind of up to speed on some of these issues with discarded needles and drug paraphernalia, because honestly, I'm 20 years behind on a lot of this stuff, so I like to be brought up to speed with it. Certainly, if you look at some of the needles that have been found at different locations, it's not like we're overrun with needles, but there certainly are an issue, and I like to understand it a little bit better.
Yes?
Mr. Mayor, could we have that as direction, if that's where council would like that to go?
I would really like to see them. Maybe we can have them here in October, which would be really good. Our next meeting, we're having the OPP and M&R in to discuss the Parry Sound 33 fire, sort of the fallout from that, and their assessment of what's happened. So, yeah. So if we can, council in favor of that? Yep. Okay. We're good? Good. One of the October meetings. Okay. Yeah. Give them some time to prepare something if they need to. Yeah. So, are there any more? Oh, yeah. Councillor Keith, you're next.
Yes, thank you. And I'm glad to hear the comments from Councillor Marshall, because I'm thinking along that line, in that I feel that, and so it would be great for a public health representative to come to council, because I really think that staff and public health need to discuss how we can provide more sites available in this community for people to dispose of their needles. Last week I spoke to somebody over in the harbor who advised me that there has been needles in some of the parks there, and those figures are not on the figures that were presented here. And I realize that some people just take things into action themselves and feel that they did the best. But I think that what is really important for us to see if really there's a means of expanding that program. I recently have spoken to Sudbury, somebody who advised me in Sudbury that they have, that public health has worked with that municipality there, and that in various parts of that community there are yellow boxes on certain streets, etc., and people can just drop their needles. Even the person that obviously is discarding the needle themselves can just easily discard that needle. So I think that we need to, yes, have somebody from public health come and speak to us about it. And I also think that we need to examine if we were to expand to have more sites, what sort of a cost figure is involved there and what responsibilities there are. But I don't think we can just feel that what we're doing right now is good enough. I think there's more that can be done. I'm not criticizing the report. I think we have to start somewhere, so I look forward to hearing more from public health.
Thank you. And just to add to that, the province is looking at this whole issue, and I happened to be last Monday be part of a roundtable. I can't say anything about it because it was all confidential, but I was part of a very small roundtable that the Minister of Health put on, and she was there and took very meticulous notes on everyone's concerns around the table, along with her and her staff. So it was rather interesting. Councillor Borneman, you're next.
Yes, I'm not sure what's on the public health website, but if they have a short, concise blurb about the safest way to dispose of these things, we should have some kind of link to that, because at the end of the day, that's what we're trying to do here, is to allow our staff and anybody else who comes across these things to dispose of them safely. So if there is a way of, if they have that information, if there is a way of linking to it, we should look into that, Mr. Menz.
Mr. Menz.
Just on that particular note, Mr. Mayor, I didn't see it. Doesn't mean that it's not there, but it didn't jump out at me from their website. Yeah.
We can ask a lot of questions, can't we? Mm-hmm. Councillor Keith.
I guess the follow-up to that is, I think whenever there's information that is to be presented on the town website, something like that needs to be really simple and easy for people to find. So when you just put it in, it's just a few words and it's simple. And I think sometimes we can all think our websites are great, but just ask somebody who doesn't use it all the time and you'll find out it isn't always as great as we think. So simple is best. Thank you.
Anything further? No? All in favor? Okay, thank you. That's carried. So moved by Councillor Horn, second by Councillor Keith. Oops.
Yep, that's the one. So you read that.
I guess it needs to be seconded by somebody else. I'm just acting for the mayor right now. It is moved by Councillor Horn, but it's seconded by myself. I think it needs to be seconded by somebody else. Huh? Somebody want to second this? Give me your John Henry, please. Got you in. I'm the one you can read. Okay. Okay, so moved by Councillor Horn, seconded by Councillor Jim Marshall. Whereas the Parry Sound Affordable Housing Development Corporation has requested council support in principle for the development of an affordable housing initiative on Wabick Street, and whereas the proposed development would require a rezoning, and whereas the Planning Act obligates council to remain neutral in its position on proposed rezonings until the public consultation process has been concluded. Now therefore be it resolved, the council therefore indicating whether it supports in principle the development of an affordable housing initiative on Wabick Street until the public consultation process through the Planning Act is concluded. So if we could open that up. Are there any comments? Councillor Borman.
Mr. Elgie, do you have any idea with respect to a time frame regarding this process?
Yes, through you, Deputy Chair. They submitted an application. We have to deem it complete within 30 days, provided it is complete. Then you want to get notice out within 15 days. Then you can have the public meeting within 20 days after that. Then council has to make a decision within, I believe, 210 days is the new rule. So we typically tell people if everything's in order, it can be 3 to 4 months usually.
Councillor Borneman, do you have another comment?
I was looking for an appropriate date to postpone this matter to, but we got to go to a specific date, and I'm not sure if I'm, I don't want to put it off too far in case they're finished earlier, and I don't want to, put it off to the next meeting because it's unlikely that they would be concluded their process by that time, I'm understanding.
Do you mean the next council meeting? Yeah. I think Rob's direction, because we worked on together, is basically saying that it might not be a good idea for council to give preliminary support to it before hearing from the public or the rezoning process really started, and there's no way it could be by the next meeting. And this would be contentious.
Somebody else have a comment here? Yes, Mr. Menz.
Through you, Madam Deputy Mayor, at least I hear what Councillor Borneman is saying, and that is what our process to identify a particular meeting and date, but at least it does reference until the planning consultation process has been concluded. So we don't, Mr. Elgie can't give council a time frame of exactly when that's going to happen. So at least you have that to refer to. It's not a specific date, but there will be a public hearing on it, a public meeting on it, rather, similar as to this evening, and that'll be your trigger.
Any rebuttal?
So do either of you have a date or a council meeting that you would recommend this go to? So is it, the first one in November, the first one in December? Pick one.
Through you, Deputy Chair, I don't even have an application in yet or any paperwork. So it's hard for me to say. They provided the application and advised of what they need to do. If they did it by then, we could probably get it by one of the November meetings, though, that being said.
Councillor McCann is ahead, please.
Thank you. For Mr. Elgie, it almost sounds to me like this letter requesting our support in principle is premature.
I'd agree.
Any further discussion? Councillor Borneman.
I'm going to suggest that we postpone this to November 6th, and we can move it further from that date. We can push it back further from that date if the process hasn't reached a certain point by then.
Ms. Boggs, could you clarify for postponing? I thought can you actually technically postpone to a certain date? Just for clarification, please.
Yes, you can, but Councillor Borneman would need a seconder for the motion, and then council would vote on the postponement.
Do I hear anybody seconding that motion? Okay, Councillor Marshall is seconding the motion. Was it no? All those in favor of postponing this to November the 6th? Anna? Okay, no. Who's opposed? Anybody opposed? One opposed. 3, 4. It's carried.
Item 923, moved by Councillor Borneman, seconded by Councillor Marshall. The council authorizes the withdrawal of $2,000 from the Bobby Orr Hall of Fame Scholarship Reserve Fund to pay 2 recipients $1,000 each. Further to bylaw number 2018-6859, which established the Bobby Orr Hall of Fame Scholarship Reserve Fund, and authorized the annual expenditure of $1,000 to 2 recipients. Discussion? All in favor? It's carried. That's a good thing. Oh. Got lots of paper going. Councillor Keith.
Mr. Mayor, I just want to, for next year, will the date be earlier for the appointment, like for scholarships to be awarded and the information coming to council? Is it possible next year that it will come all to council a little sooner rather than the date is kind of late, you know, for people to know?
I think we're going to have Caitlin come back up to the microphone so people get to know who she is. And she can probably explain all that. Welcome again.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. The establishment of the Bobby Orr Hall of Fame Scholarship was a new initiative this year. 2 generous donors approached us in June, shortly before the Celebrating Youth Awards were handed out. So we very quickly reviewed the applications in order to be able to award to local youth the $1,000 each for this year. I would expect next year, if we hold the Celebrating Youth Awards around the same time in June, that we would be bringing this motion forth next year in June.
I think that would be great, because anybody who gets a scholarship, I realize about this year, but in the future, that's a pretty anxious matter, and you're trying to get to university, and you know that you would need that money, so that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything further with regard to this resolution? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. I got one on there. Seems thick. What? Okay, where's? Oh, yeah, okay.
I just had myself. This is a long.
Oh, yeah, okay. All right. So moved by Councillor Keith and seconded by Councillor Horn. The council for the town of Parry Sound has hereby approved the draft consolidated financial statements for the year ended December 31st, 2017 in Schedule A as attached. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. There you go, that was quick. Okay, moved by Councillor Borneman.
To back up to that these statements will be, once approved, will be available online. So anybody who's having difficulty sleeping will be able to review them at your leisure.
Yeah. Ms. Chen?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, those financial statements will be posted on the website.
Very good. Thanks. So, moved by Councillor Marshall, second by Councillor Borneman, that council hereby receives and accepts the variance report for Q2 2018, June 30th, 2018 in Schedule A as attached, and further that council hereby approves the expenses for council members from the period of January 1st, 2018 to June 30th, 2018 as in Schedule B attached. Discussion. All in favor? That's carried. Item 941, moved by Councillor Keith and seconded by Councillor Horn, that upon the recommendation of Triton Engineering Services Limited, council accept the tender from Fowler Construction Company Limited for the reconstruction of Dennis Drive and Macklem Drive, including water, wastewater, and road work, in the amount of $905,599.12, excluding HST, this tender being the lowest tender of two tenders received. This includes $174,179.77 worth of work to be completed as part of the Isabella Street reconstruction project. Any discussion? Yes, Councillor Marshall.
Yeah, just a question for Mr. Brown. What would be the time frame as far as rolling out these improvements to, I'm assuming Isabella Street would probably be the first part of it to be done, and then working on Macklem Drive and Dennis Drive would be the second part?
Through your worship, the intention is exactly that, is to get the Isabella Street short section done this year. We're also waiting on the Ministry of Environment for the final approvals for all the infrastructure works for Macklem and Dennis. If I receive them tomorrow, we could start the day after. But it could be a few months before we see the light of day from the ministry. Having said that, we may end up having to wait till 2019 to do Macklem and Dennis. But my full intention is to complete the section that was mentioned tonight of Isabella in the next month or two.
Any further questions? Just as a reminder, I know council knows, but the Dennis Drive and Macklem Drive part of it will be funded by the properties that are being developed in that particular area, and this will open up a new area for residential development for housing, so which is needed. Anything further on that one, Mr. Mans, that we need to? We're good? Okay, all right, good. Anything further on this particular item? All in favor then? No, it's carried. Item 942, moved by Councillor Marshall, second by Councillor McCann, that upon the recommendation of Triton Engineering Services, council accept the tender from Fowler Construction Company Limited for the replacement of the existing concrete retaining wall on the southeast corner of the intersection of Gibson Street and Logan's Lane in the amount of $75,850, excluding HST, this tender being the lowest tender of 4 received. Discussion. Councillor Borneman, then Councillor Keith.
Mr. Brown, what types of materials are being used on this job? We've done some of this work in the past that hasn't really stood the test of time, and more recently we seem to be using a different grade of material.
Through your worship, the original material that we're replacing, as an example on Bose and Louisa and on Bay Street, we're using what's called Ready Rock, which is a very hardened type of concrete, which is meant to last a very long time. The material that we're replacing, no longer in business for starters, and the second thing is that when it was installed, they didn't actually complete the process 20 years ago. There was a coating that was supposed to have been installed, and apparently it wasn't completed at the time. Having said that, salt and sand and weather will will deteriorate pretty well anything. But this ready rock that we're using now is meant to last a very long time. We're quite impressed with the product.
Thank you.
Councillor Keith? Yep.
Thank you. Part of my question has been already asked, but the other part is that I'm wondering about is, I get the impression, and of course none of us are perfect in life, but sometimes maybe the plow also hits the retaining wall, and I'm just kind of wondering, these retaining walls, like, is there any sort of extra little barrier that could be put in front so the plow hits that rather than the wall? Because it just seems there's a lot of cost here involved, and that has that been tried in any municipality?
Through your worship, not that I'm aware of, but I want to say that staff make every effort to ensure that they don't hit anything, be it in a plow or a sidewalk plow. I think part of the solution is to step the retaining wall back further and put a boulevard or an asphalt strip between the two. Sometimes we can't do that because of the lack of property, or the fact that the road allowance is narrow in that one spot. I believe in this particular project we can step that retaining wall back a little bit, so then we can put an asphalt strip there, and that will allow the sidewalk plow to stay away from it when he's going by.
That's my hope. Thank you.
Councillor Marshall.
To Mr. Brown, just out of curiosity, I think this is the third retaining wall we've done in my tenure of council over 4 years. How many more of these do we have to replace over the next 5, 10, 20 years?
Through your worship, I was hoping you weren't going to ask me that question. There's an awful lot of retaining walls that need to be replaced in this town, and I couldn't begin to count. As an example, one that we haven't done, which is on the books to be done, is the second half of Bay Street, where it turns into James Street, where there's a rickety old metal post system on top of it. It's all falling apart. If you drive down Church Street, there are numerous small retaining walls all the way along there that are falling apart. If you there's another couple on Gibson Street. So the list is somewhat endless, just like the list is somewhat endless as far as road reconstruction in this town. But we're trying our best to get through it one step at a time with the money that we have. We've saved money on this particular job, which I'm hoping that we can roll over to another retaining wall in 2019.
Follow-up?
Yeah, just as a follow-up, with some of these that need to be replaced, is there an opportunity so we can get away from retaining walls and just do landscaping and, hills with grass on them? Because I just don't think retaining walls work well up here. There's too much snow, there's too much salt, there's too much cold. They just deteriorate.
Through your worship, I agree. And we have attempted that in some locations. As an example, on River Street, close to where it turns into Cascade, there was a retaining wall that had an angle of about 30 degrees. It was in rough shape. So we were able to create a landscape situation where we would just blend the grass out. Take the wall out completely and just have a slope grass from the sidewalk up towards the house. Works great. We couldn't do that on Bose and Louisa Street or on Gibson Street. So we do look at that option, and if we can do it, then we can do it, or we do it internally, we do it ourselves.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything further? No? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. That's all we have to do, right? Yeah, okay. So this is the bylaw that's come back, because we had to do the first and second readings and the final one. So it was moved by Councillor Horn and second by Councillor Keith, that the bylaw above mentioned be considered as read a second and third time, passed, signed, and sealed. Now I can call for discussion. Anyone that would like to discuss anything with this particular bylaw? Councillor Borneman.
I think it was Mr. Brown. Could someone explain what we're up to here and why this had to be delayed?
Mr. Brown?
Your worship, I will attempt to
you
explain.
wanna
The energy company has to make application to the municipality to renew their licensing franchise agreement. Once they make application for that, then before it's approved by the local council, it has to be forwarded to the Ontario Energy Board for their approval. It has to be posted on the website and in the newspaper, have I believe a 20-day waiting period for any comments. If no comments are brought back, then the Union Gas returns to the municipality for the final approval. It's just the way the regulations are written.
Anything further? No? All in favor? That's carried. Union Gas people will be happy. So, moved by Councillor Marshall, second by Councillor Borneman, that bylaw number 2018-6862, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council, be considered as read a first time. All in favor? That's carried. All members in favor of having the second and third readings? That's carried. Moved by Councillor Borneman, seconded by Councillor Marshall, that the bylaw above mentioned be considered as read a second and third time, passed, signed, and sealed. All in favor? And that's carried. So, prior to adjourning, I'd like to offer the following information to the public regarding the next council meeting. The next regular meeting of council for the town of Parry Sound is scheduled to take place at 52 Sequin Street in the council chambers located on the top floor. Public access to the building is off Gibson Street. The next regular meeting of council is Tuesday, September 18th, 2018 at 7 p.m. All regular council meetings are held at 7 p.m. on the first and third Tuesday of each month, except January and August, where only one regular meeting is scheduled. Regular and special meetings are now live streamed. Please check news and public notices on our website at www.parrysound.ca for instructions to watch live or see earlier council meetings. Agendas, changes to council meeting schedule, and notices of special council meetings will be posted on the town's website at www.parrysound.ca under news and public notices prior to a council meeting. The public is available to view an electronic copy of the complete agenda with attachments on the town's website. Just search council calendar and the date of the meeting, and should you wish to receive the combined agenda via email, you may make that request on our website or contact the clerk at the municipal office. Minutes of the council meetings will be posted within 2 days after the council meeting on the town's website and on the bulletin board located in the municipal office entrance. Your TV will continue to air the regular Parry Sound Council meeting on Saturday at 9:30 a.m. following a regular council meeting. For Your TV listings, contact www.yourtv.tv. Starting today, September 4th, the voters list is available to the public to check to ensure that they are on it and that the information is correct. This is how you will receive your voter information letter with your special PIN number. To vote between October 9th and October 22nd, 2018, you can access the voters list in hard copy at the Parry Sound Public Library and the Parry Sound Fire Hall during hours of operation. If you need to be added to the list or make changes, you will have to attend the municipal office during regular office hours. Please bring identification, and that includes your eligible address. And again, hometown hockey, October 13th and 14th. And thank you, everyone, and have a great night.